This is my audience. What do you think is the major problem affecting our planet? Is it war? Is it poverty? Is it political turmoil? There are so many problems that affect our planet as well as our human and animal populations that it is hard to decide which issue is the most important and urgent. However, there's one problem that affects all of us, no matter where we live, how much money we have, what our political beliefs are. That problem is global warming. Global warming is such a big problem that it can feel overwhelming. Finding a solution to global warming demands cooperation of every person on the planet. Just getting everyone to agree on something seems like an insurmountable task. That's why we must break it down, go step by step, so we can turn this mountain into a molehill. Let's start by looking at the causes of global warming. One of the primary contributors to global warming is deforestation. Deforestation is directly linked to the deteriorating health of the planet. Not only does it greatly impact nature, wildlife, and ecosystems, but it is also a major factor in the accumulation of pollution. Usually we think of pollution as littering, but it is beyond that. The machines that are used to cut down forests in the process of deforestation release carbon dioxide into our atmosphere every day. This carbon dioxide in our atmosphere traps heat and raises the global temperature. When the global temperature goes up, it results in some alarming consequences for our planet. Consequences that will affect all of us eventually, no matter where we are from or what advantages and disadvantages we might have in life. These consequences include melting ice caps and raising sea levels. If sea levels go up significantly over time, the entire population of the world that lives along the coast of each of our continents will have to migrate inward. This migration will result in a multitude of problems. This is something I can relate to because I live in Miami, Florida, which will be one of the planets most affected by sea level rise on our planet. But this won't just affect humans. The rising sea levels will cause untold damage to animal and plant species, destroying many habitats and populations. But what can we do about it? Many argue that the wood we gather from cutting down forests makes it possible to employ and house a great number of workers. They believe that deforestation is justified for economic reasons. But is it? Do the jobs deforestation creates outweigh the environmental consequences? Looking at the effect that deforestation is having on the environment, it's easy to see how the negative outcomes greatly exceed the positives. By looking at marine science writer Kyle Kirkland's argument, it is evident that deforestation is becoming a major contributing factor to global warming, as more CO2 is let loose into the atmosphere. Kirkland states, and I quote, "The average global temperature increase on Earth is proceeding at an unusually rapid pace and is correlated with rising levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere caused by human activities such as deforestation, which removes CO2-absorbing vegetation, and the burning of fossil fuels, which adds carbon dioxide to the air." Unquote. Clearly, deforestation is a huge contributor to the global warming, and we must put a stop to it before it's too late. Although most would agree with what I just said, there are still many who disagree. A point that is often made is that stopping deforestation would cut off economic resources for individuals who depend on them for their livelihoods. The worst possible outcome of stopping the deforestation process would be that it could throw thousands of people into poverty, causing hunger and desperation for those who have depended on this industry. But can we somehow minimize this outcome? Can we find a solution that does not put people out of work and still helps the environment? I would like to offer a solution. I believe that if we slow the rate of deforestation and control what areas of forest are being cut down, then we will be able to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This will also allow us to start erasing our carbon footprint, an essential component of controlling climate change. The idea is to be targeted and thoughtful in what is cut down and what is left. We must be thoughtful. Ignoring the situation is not an option. Ignoring it just means increasing deforestation. The World Count is a website that covers many scary statistics of our planet and offers ideas about what we can do to attempt to prevent deforestation. In an article called Our Blue and Green Planet, the following piece of advice is given. Write to your local government officials on the topic of deforestation and try cutting in your area. Ask them to create more parks. Creating more parks and cutting down less trees is a great idea, but what else can be done? Sometimes proposed solutions actually create more problems. From bioenergy to carbon trading, there have been many ineffective and possibly damaging solutions offered by the media and governments. Looking at one of those solutions, nuclear energy, we can see why solutions can be dangerous. Since nuclear plants can only be maintained in colder environments and can become unstable otherwise, relying on them is not a good idea. In Friends of the Earth Europe, an article on ineffective solutions to climate change, they explored the subject of nuclear energy, stating that, quote, nuclear plants are also not sustainable in a warmer world, and there's no safe, long-term solution for the storage of radioactive waste. Nuclear cannot deliver safely or within the required time period, unquote. The problem of deforestation demands solutions that work. As you listen to this speech, forests are being cut down by corporations at an alarming rate and without consideration of the ecosystems and species that inhabit these environments. The corporate disregard for living organisms and their habitats is the primary factor in a decline of their populations. These corporations also produce large amounts of pollution. The machines used to cut down trees are at this moment blowing tons of smoke out of their exhaust pipes. The corporations that are doing this have ignored the consequences of their actions for decades. They need to be stopped. But the response from the general population has not been to stop them. Instead, the focus has been on recycling, but recycling is not enough. Hegler, the author of I Work in the Environmental Movement, I Don't Care If You Recycle, points out that the main cause of climate change comes from big corporations, not the average person. In saying this, she is not implying that recycling in and of itself is not important, but that it is not enough to solve the problem of global warming. She isn't arguing that recycling is not helpful, but instead saying that we shouldn't be shaming each other for not recycling. She adds that it is imperative to hold people in power responsible for their actions. While we're busy testing each other's purity, we let the government and industries, the authors of said devastation, off the hook completely, unquote. So if recycling is not enough, what can individuals do about global warming? In order to tackle this problem, we must get back to the issue of deforestation. The solution starts here. In Julie Kerr's book, Global Warming Cycles, 2nd edition, she explores the subject of greenhouse gases and why they are so dangerous. She says sea level rise accelerated during the 1900s. The increase of greenhouse gases in Earth's atmosphere from anthropogenic sources has warmed the environment enough that the global average sea level has risen 4 to 8 inches, 10 to 20 centimeters, unquote. The problem is greater than any one individual or community. Yet we continue to blame each other for not recycling, not using solar energy, and not driving electric cars. But thinking about sea level rise seems so abstract. Let's look at a specific example. The Republic of the Marshall Islands are a group of 5 main islands and 29 atolls in the central North Pacific Ocean. They are currently in grave danger due to the sea level rise caused by global warming that is a result of massive corporations polluting the air. According to Kerr, quote, major international scientific reports project that the sea levels will rise 1 to 3 feet on an average across the world by 2100. For the Marshall Islands, where most of the atolls are less than 6 feet above sea level and a few are more than a mile wide, that will mean extinction, unquote. Recycling and using solar energy will not stop sea level rise. So why not stop blaming one another and start acting intelligently and organizing against those who are really to blame? Small personal choices can make a difference, but are not the major contributors to global warming. While we blame ourselves, the people in power at big corporations stay relieved of all blame. People fear corporations because they have convinced them of the economic consequences of abruptly stopping deforestation. They fail to demand that big corporations assume the responsibility for emission of greenhouse gases because we fear them. Nobody wishes for our Earth's atmosphere to be polluted and weakened. But at the same time, nobody wants to challenge the corporations in power. But if we don't challenge and demand a change, deforestation will continue to be an issue and further raise the levels of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere until even our home state of Florida is underwater. So is it all about recycling? No, it's way more than that. We have to hold corporations responsible, and that starts with political action from each and every one of us. I'm not willing to wait, are you? Here's my audience.